Moving to our next speaker, Dr. Vikas Gupta. Welcome to you, sir. And he is a CEO and Chief Investment Strategist at Omniscience Capital. So your theme today is asset allocation and investment strategy, which is very important for the investor's perspective. And so, Dr. Gupta, we now turn to the institutional investor perspective. So the three key areas or key focus areas for you to tell us is sectoral winners and sectoral themes. One. Second is capital allocation trends post budget. And third would be risk assessment and medium term strategy. So I have three questions for you again, which is which sector emerges as structural beneficiaries of budget 2026? Second question would be how should investors differentiate short-term noise from long-term signals? And third question is what key risks should investors monitor over the next 12 months, 12 to 24 months? Dr. Gupta, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Aryan. Pleasure to be here. So first thing, picking up from the earlier speakers and Professor Sundaram as well, that we should not look at this year's budget as a focus slice. Rather, we should look at it as a evolution over a long period of time, right? In terms of the strategic movement. So, if you look at that, uh, think about it that typically 2035, most people will agree that somewhere around $10 trillion is the Indian economy. Okay, that is the target, out of which around 6 trillion would be services, and target is to have more than 3 trillion of manufacturing. Okay, and the remaining would be agriculture, etc. So services and manufacturing become the two major components where huge growth has to happen over the next 10 years. And the whole focus of government has been to create uh, an ecosystem where this happens. Okay, so far the focus was, like, if you go back 10 years back to 2016 onwards, the idea was to make a cashless economy, to have a 5G 4G telecom kind of a basic infrastructure, so that you could build a national digital infrastructure on which naturally then the UPI came, and a national market was created and an Aadhaar based system of identifying. So the digital infrastructure was the first layer. Then a national market was created by GST reforms. So theoretically the national market was available. Then ONDC, which is still lesser known, but ONDC is in place to create a digital marketplace where people can trade. Flipkart and Amazon like platforms are already there. Bank accounts were already there, Jandan accounts. So all this is creating a digital infrastructure. Next was the physical infrastructure. So this is where, which is ongoing. Last 5 years from 2020 onwards, you have been seeing huge focus on capital investment in infrastructure. And by infrastructure, primarily roads, railways, right, power. These are waterways, etc. We saw the focus in this budget. But so all of these infrastructure things were being put in place, and we saw evolution of that even this year, with 7 high-speed railway routes being announced. Earlier there was the eastern dedicated freight corridor and western dedicated freight corridor, which is nearly complete now. This time we announced east-west freight corridor in this budget, right? So you can see very clearly the evolution, how it's happening, and significant, very very large amounts of capital were put in. Like if you go back 10 years, the total capex, including grants in aid, was about 2.5 lakh crores. Today it's around 17 lakh crores. We are talking about this budget. Okay, so that's extremely large. That's something like 180 to 190 billion dollars every year. So if you take a 5-year thing, it's nearly slightly less than $1 trillion. Okay, 0.9 or by the end of, and every year it will increase. So, and this is such large amount of capital investment while having extremely consolidated on a fiscal basis. So while maintaining the debt to GDP ratios while maintaining all the capital ratios, so that we also get ratings upgrade, etc. So infrastructure is the next layer, which is we are in the middle of that phase. So digital was done, physical infrastructure is now getting in place, and then the next step is where entrepreneurs have to step in and create opportunities. Okay, which is what Mr. Ajay Thakur just mentioned about SMEs and MSMEs, etc. So entrepreneurial efforts. There is huge amount being put into manufacturing. So to get to the 3 trillion plus and 6 trillion or so in services and manufacturing, lot of things have to be put in place. These are also large job creators. Okay, and all of these large numbers become easier when you have lot of trade, and so the number of trade deals, as you can see, but the most important being the US and EU. Okay, US, the details are yet to come, but you can decipher a few things from the tweet as well as from the budget. You put two and two together, you can understand. Okay, so even though the tweet doesn't mention, you see a number of things in the rare earth metals, rare earth minerals in this budget, right? So there is development of the whole mining of rare earths in the southern states, and then there is a waterway along the eastern states for supporting the rare earth mining and so on. And there will be a lot of imports or technology transfer or joint ventures or FDI related to rare earth processing. And it's very clear that the world wants to move away from dependency, extreme dependency on China for that. And that would be part of the, whether it's explicitly stated yet or visible, will be part of the US-India trade deal, is likely to be part of the EU trade deal as well. Okay, that India becoming the uh, uh, China plus one, the plus one supplier for rare earths. Okay, so that is again part of a evolving theme, which is global supply chain transformation. So again, if you see, lot of things like the other big thing which was coming was the sunrise sectors. The focus was put on biopharma, biotech, right? Biosimilars. Then there is focus on data centers, not only for Indian consumption, but data centers for rest of the world, right? So we gave a huge tax break up till 2047 to that. So which is very clearly indicating that there is some kind of a deal happening. Probably we'll see in the US-India trade deal that there is that we will be buying or there will be FDI in data centers, maybe with joint venture with local companies, and for that technology will be brought in. That technology will be part of the trade deal, right? India's commitment to, let's say, $100 billion annually from US. So over 5 years, that becomes $500 billion, which Trump is tweeted. So that's roughly 100. It's not much of a challenge. We are already buying $83 billion of goods and services from US. So moving from that to an average of 100 over next 5 years, annual average of 100, is not a challenge, especially when we need equipment in data centers. We need equipment in nuclear. The reason for nuclear, again, the whole economy is growing at such a fast pace. You need power to power that economy, and we will need clean technology for that, renewable technologies for that, and nuclear. And nuclear is the SMR, which is still to be proven, but the small modular reactor, that is required for the data centers if you want large scale energy. So these are some of the technologies which are being brought in, probably from US and from the European countries as well. So, but you can kind of parse the budget and start putting two and two together, that what is going on with the US trade deal or some details of the EU deal. So this is the forward-looking things are, biopharma, AI, data centers, clean technology, nuclear technology, rare earth processing. So these are some of the areas where we need to focus on, and where we will see lot of investments and lot of activity, and maybe in 3-4 years time lot of production. Okay, because all these things will take time in terms of getting activated, but during that time the capex of the whole thing is going to happen. So you can start seeing all of these things as an integrated thing rather than isolated bits and pieces that, okay, this is a EU deal, this is a US deal, this is this year's budget. No, it is part of a very large integrated vision where India becomes a very, very important and critical keystone species of the global economic ecosystem. Okay.
Absolutely.
I've already mentioned some of the sectors, but I would like to point out from an investment point of view, the most important, all of this gets financed by the financing sector, the capital markets and banking. And so the focus should be on capital markets and banking. And fortunately for investors, these sectors are, especially banking, is available at extremely low valuations. It's mind-bogglingly low valuations. It's unlikely to happen again in the near future. Exactly at the point when the balance sheets are the cleanest in decades, NPAs are the lowest in decades, and growth is forward-looking growth. It's already double-digit nearly, but forward-looking growth is probably mid-teens. So under those circumstances, to be able to get PSU banks at below 10 PE and to get private sector banks below 20 PE, that's just mind-boggling opportunity.
All right, Dr. Gupta. So you have very nicely given your view on this. So separating policy excitement from investable clarity feels critical right now. So I would sum up your analysis in three Hindi for Hindi audience also. कि अल्पकालीन उतार चढ़ाव धैर्य की परीक्षा लेता है, दीर्घकालीन स्पष्टता अनुशासन की लेता है। हर बजट उत्साह पैदा करता है, लेकिन कुछ बजट ही वास्तविक फाउंडेशन बनाते हैं। तो निवेश जो है एक जल्दी होने से पैसा नहीं गंवाते, निवेशक जो है जल्दी होने से पैसा नहीं गंवाते, बल्कि गलत होने से गंवाते हैं। So that's what Dr. Gupta has always maintained. Thank you so much, sir, for being here, and we'll come back to you again with our questions. If anybody has any question, I can take it, or I move to Dr. Gupta with the last question of the day, and then we can close. Any question from anyone? No one. So I would just I have one clarifying question to Dr. Gupta. Sir, where should investor remain patient despite short-term noise? Dr. Gupta.
See, it's actually very simple. If a company was unlisted, the only thing people would focus on was the evolution of the balance sheet year on year. Whether the net worth is increasing, whether debt is within the range, safe range, whether revenues are higher than the previous year. And in case of little bit of cyclicality, you would look at the 5-year rolling kind of revenue growth, right? Revenues, profits, cash flows. Are all of these things or most of these things increasing every year? And as long as that was increasing and volume of business was increasing, people would be satisfied with the performance of their investment. As soon as it is listed, somehow our focus is completely on the stock price. Okay, and most people say, oh, I bought it at 100 rupees, now it's looking like 80 rupees, so I have a 20% loss. It doesn't make sense. If you paid 100 rupees for something which you calculated based on the conservative future cash flows as worth, let's say, 200 or 150 rupees, and you paid 100 rupees, and it's now trading at 80 rupees, it's absolutely another chance to grab even more of the company if you have the capital. If you don't have the capital, have the patience that it is at least allowing you. If it was unlisted, you couldn't exit the company. At a 20% discount from when you entered, you have liquidity option. So the capital market is giving me two advantages. One, if I have more capital, I can buy it cheaper, right? Second, if I don't have and I need to exit and get some liquidity at a haircut of whatever it is, 10, 20, 30%, I can still exit and get my capital back, the portion which I need, which I can get. So these are the things which has to be viewed. Rather, most people get psychologically destroyed saying, I invested 100 and it's looking like 70 or 80 and I have a 20% loss. And which the person doesn't need money today. So nobody is forcing him to sell off, and he just has to wait for the typical bear market lasts anywhere between 6 months to 1.5 years, sometimes 2 years. Okay, that's typically the range. In rare cases, let's say 10% of the cases, it lasts for 3 years to get the same number back in the headline numbers I'm talking about. Let's say Nifty to Nifty or Sensex, whatever it was, earlier peak, it goes down and comes back. So it's a matter of, and which is why people say that you should be having 3 to 5 years of investment horizon when coming to capital markets. So you should actually always be prepared that the day I invest, markets will go down and remain down for next 3 years, and that doesn't matter to me. If you understand this, then that eventually Mr. Market will be forced to price things correctly. In the short run, it deviates. Sometimes it's extremely overvalued compared to the value of a company. Sometimes it's extremely undervalued. But eventually, over a 3-5 year period, typically it goes back in line with the intrinsic value of the company. And if you have made a conservative estimate of intrinsic value, and you have bought it at significant discount to that, and you have a portfolio rather than 1 or 2 stocks. You need 20-25 stocks in your portfolio, which you are consistently watching from different sectors and industries. And if that is the case, and you understand this 3-year, 5-year patience requirement, and you understand that I should look at the fundamentals, it will be very easy to have the patience to hold through this.